That's the biggest thing I have to overcome, is going in front of that big crowd.
Absolutely. I've never been real comfortable in front of people from school projects on up. So hardest part for me in my first fight was just walking past that big noisy crowd and calming the nerves once I got to the ring so that I could focus on the task at hand.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be the same this time, or with that one fight under the belt?
I'm hoping it'll be easier, but there's potential it could be worse. I've got the whole team from here in Vegas. They're going to be going nuts and doing their best to embarrass me, I'm sure. But this should be a pretty big, rowdy crowd this time around. But hopefully the experience of the first one will make it a little easier for me. So
is there someone to turn to, kind of get advice on staying calm, and who's been kind of mentoring you on that, or are they just saying, hey, you're on your own?
Everybody's been real supportive and made it clear that if I have any questions or if I need any help, from my dad and Kim on down to Tyson and Gray and all the other fighters and Coach Tompkins and everybody that I've worked with here, I've got a ton of resources to draw on. It's just a matter of going to them when I need that advice. So far, I feel like I've been handling it pretty well on my own and just kind of trying to process it internally and adjust. But it's really comforting to know that I have so many experienced resources at hand.
So background-wise, you wrestled a little bit, right? Obviously, I don't know that it was a lifelong thing for you.
I wrestled for maybe a year when I was a little boy, like 9, 10 years old. Wasn't real into it then, but when I got to junior high, I was looking for a sport to play, and obviously made sense considering I'd grown up around it and was real comfortable with it. So from 7th grade all the way through high school, I wrestled. My senior year in high school, I placed 3rd in the state of Washington, so I was real happy with that. Kind of burned myself out on it at the same time, and took probably 4 or 5 years after high school off of any kind of activity.
Yeah.
So then about 3 years ago, started feeling lazy and didn't feel like being a slob anymore, and started getting back in shape. Made friends with some guys that were doing some jiu-jitsu and started getting workouts in that way, and that sort of led into the rest of it coming together.
So how quick did the fire come back? Were you worried that it wouldn't come back when you first started it?
Well, initially it was just going running and trying to lose some of the extra weight I put on and just feel healthier. And once I started seeing results there and shedding the pounds and feeling that energy that comes with being active, and I got real excited about it and started looking for new workouts and new ways to get good exercise in. And the jiu-jitsu was not quite as intense as wrestling as what I'd burned myself out on, but was a similar outlet. I got to think in a similar way and do similar things with my body, so that became kind of my favorite way of working out. And
so it sounds like more of a fitness thing than a competitive thing. Are you competitive?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Especially now that I've gotten more into it. But it definitely started on a much more fitness-oriented level. It was just hanging around guys that are competing and obviously watching it on TV every weekend and everything. It's hard not to catch that bug, and especially when I started having success in the room and finding that I was one of the better guys in there. That made it really hard not to want to get out and test it against people at other gyms, and that's kind of how I got into competition.
So has it been a good thing to be around your father now all the time?
Well, it's been the best thing.
Yeah.
I mean, just taking that passion and that desire that I had to compete to the next level, seeing firsthand him and just the who's who that we have here at the gym, seeing what they go through and getting to sort of sample that for myself, that kind of training has really made it clear that this is something I want to pursue and see how far I can take it.
So how does he handle the relationship?
He, ever since I first started wrestling, he had the foresight to see, there was always going to be kind of that, Randy's kid stigma, and so he came to me early on in my wrestling career and then reiterated early in my fighting career that, he's excited that I'm doing it. He wants to make sure I'm doing it because I want to do it, not because I feel pressured to because of him, and that he's happy to help with anything that I need, but he's not going to force it on me, and that he's there and I just have to go to him if I have any questions. So he's been really great about stepping back and letting it be my thing and letting me come to him with any help that I need.
It's kind of interesting in mixed martial arts, and maybe because we don't have the long history, and maybe it exists with Japanese fighters or Brazilian fighters, but I don't know that you have a lot of mixed martial artists who have their father involved. And I'm not, their father doesn't have to be Randy Couture, but, because in boxing, a lot of times you'll have the major boxers, they came up with their dad, so and a lot of times that relationship snaps at some point.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. I would assume maybe that'll happen down the road. I don't know. Maybe second and third generation mixed martial artists.
I would think it would have to. I mean, with any sport, you get the same thing in football with the Manning family, and I think as the sport is around longer and longer, there's going to be more and more of that. But I've definitely thought of that myself, hearing about, I'm sure, Mayweather and anybody else in boxing who's had a family member as a trainer and then they have a falling out, and I definitely want to steer clear of that. So it's one reason I really appreciate the approach that my dad has taken with kind of letting my career be mine, and he's there if I need him, but he's happy just being a spectator as well.
All right. So how do you think your father would react if you were like, I like the way you handle things, in terms of the relationship, but maybe I need someone who's going to crack the whip a little more. What would happen if you actually kind of went to someone else, not outside the gym, but your mentor or someone else full time, aside from your dad? Do you think he would handle it okay?
Yeah, I think he'd be supportive. I'm sure he'd offer his input if he thought it wasn't going to be helpful. He'd let me know that, but at the end of the day, it's my decision, and I think he'd respect that. So
what's it like having to do, you haven't done a ton, but some of the interviews, and then, you're the top billed guy, it's your second fight, it's going to be a pretty, for folks outside of Las Vegas, they don't realize these amateur fight cards here are pretty big. Tough Enough does pretty well. There's a couple thousand people over at the Orleans, so for you, we talked about nerves in front of the crowd, and your stepmom had to deal with the same thing. That was pretty impressive. There was about 8,000 people there at that free card last year, and they were there to see Kim. So what's it like kind of carrying the Couture name, not only from the pressure of having to deliver, but then from the marketing standpoint, it's like now all these people are here to see me, and I don't know that you have to live up to a certain legacy. They're not expecting you to be your dad, but it's something no one else on that card deals with.
Absolutely. I think I'm just kind of learning now what it's like. This is really the first I've had to deal with it, but having Kim go before me and sort of blaze that trail, I got to see just exactly how nuts it got for her, and so that gives me sort of a bar to measure my expectations by, and so far it hasn't been as out of control for me as it was with her, but we'll see where it goes. It's definitely interesting, and so far I'm more comfortable with it than I expected to be, but you never know. I got a lot more ahead of me.
And you're fighting at 55, right?
That's correct.
All right. Well, good place to train at 55.
I can't think of one better.
What's it like when you now as an amateur, and maybe you'll turn pro eventually? What's it like trying to lock horns with guys like Tyson Griffin, with guys like Gray Maynard, Junie Browning's in the gym? Do you feel competitive? Are you getting overwhelmed? What's it like?
It varies from day to day. It's typically fairly painful, but as long as I'm doing just enough of my own, inflicting just enough of my own, then I feel like I've accomplished something. So. You can't go in there with an expectation that you're going to hang even or beat any of those guys, because obviously they're at a completely different level than I am, but they're all really good about working with me and giving me pointers and helping me improve, and they're all really good training partners. So while it's humbling and it lets you know exactly where you stand, but it's also a really good confidence boost too, because I know what I'm going through in that room, no one else I'm going to fight is going through anywhere else.
Right. So what do you think? Possibility down the road that we have a triple Couture card? Or I think your dad has to stay around long enough. Not to say your dad's old, but that means you have to come very quickly, and then Kim has to get on the card too.
Yeah, I'd have to hurry up. I think I'm the one, between him getting close to retirement and me wanting to take my time and really be comfortable before I go pro, that's what's going to be the holdup for that. But I think it'd be kind of amazing if it happened. It'd be surreal.
It'd be pretty neat. I guess the last thing we should ask is the obvious question. You actually, there are times do you roll with Kim at all, or is it striking? Because we had heard she was working with you before her last fight.
We did a little light sparring and kind of situational drilling the last week before her last fight. So real light, just kind of trying to keep her skills sharp and keep her ready for some of the little things that might come up in the fight.
Yeah.
So that's about the extent that I've really worked one-on-one with her. But
I was going to say, kind of not cool, going in and beating up your stepmom. That's
getting beat up. She was the one that got my eye that week. So
you're not supposed to admit that.
Yeah, well, everybody blacks my eye just about around here. So
there you go.